In the next One Piece, all the nobles of Gao Kingdom go to Taco Bell at 3 a.m. Ah, the perks of living in Hightown.
Are you fucking kidding me? That was an option? Why did I choose to be born a fucking peasant?
King of the what now's gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. King of the what now's gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. We've got a multi-act season, 1, 2, 3. So come aboard to brave the sea. Supernovas and mystery. Warlords, wars, and tragedy. King of the what now's gonna take you down. Gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now.
Celestial dragons, lowest of low. Overwhelming enemies, it's time to go. Luffy's gonna fight for his big bro, so now it's time to start the show. Hello, fellow children wandering around the mountain, being parented by some mountain bandits, and welcome to another episode of King of the What Now, your only place where you can buy adorable children-themed pirate weaponry.
You keep promising the people merch and then not having any merch available. Someday someone's going to come for us. We're going to get reported to the Better Business Bureau. The Bureau.
They can't stop me. I have this pipe that I found lying around. I'm your host, Joel, longtime fan of the series. And, I'm just a kid running around, almost got eaten by a crocodile, but I punched his lights out.
You've got that pipe, and if the pipe doesn't work, you'll burn down an Applebee's.
Absolutely. And who are you?
Strangely
incorporeal form that is floating before me.
I'm your co-host, Kat. I'm the ghost of the show, and I only kill that which I intend to eat. You're looking pretty good there, Joel.
I will use my secret technique, spoon and spork, in order to stop you. Okay. Knife. So welcome to a very special episode of King of the What Now.
Oh, are we going to talk about drugs?
No, we're not. What we did is we watched episodes 490 through 496 of One Piece, but we realized one of these episodes was the second part of a crossover with Toriko anime, and so we also watched the very first episode of Toriko so that we would actually know what was going on, and we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Joel, what have you been reading, watching, listening to in the past week?
Yeah, I've been up to a lot. Work has been very slow for me recently, which has allowed me to listen to some good audiobooks. You have been going on about the Grisha books for the last couple of podcast episodes. I think a couple of weeks ago you were on the original trilogy, which was Shadow and Bones. You and I both watched the Netflix show. There's the second duology, which is the Kaz Brekker books, and then there's the final duology that's out right now, the King of Scars duology. Perfect. I downloaded the Shadow and Bone books, and I was able to read through them or listen to them since the last episode. So, wow, that's a good series, I think. The best character doesn't show up till the third book, but it's Oncat. It's not a spoiler, it's literally just one of the characters gets a cat, and its name is basically Fantasy Ireland's name for cat. And he's just in every scene, and they always mention, like, during this pandemonium, the cat was darting around hissing at things. And I love it so much.
10 out of 10, top Oncat. Was I right that the softer magic worked for you? The elemental kind of...
Yeah, I think so. I will say, now that I've finally been given a soft magic system, there was one book where they said something like, they were getting tired from using their magic, and I said, it's never established that they, use muscles to use their magic. Of course there's a limit, but it's one of those books where the magic is so soft, which is, again, going back to Brandon Sanderson's soft versus hard magic. Hard magic has strict rules, soft magic is a little bit more wave your hands in the air.
Sanderson was saying that he prefers his books to be 90% hard magic and 10% soft, and I think this book was more 80% soft, 20% hard. There are kind of rules, but not really, and they don't really have an impact on the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certain things that people can do, and there's questions about what will happen if they use that spell in this way, or what happens if they're in the middle of casting and then they are defeated or something, knocked unconscious or killed. And so, yeah, some of the mystery comes from not knowing exactly what the rules are. But there are places where it's kind of like, I have no way of knowing if these two people who can both shoot bursts of wind are the same level of power, or if one of them is 9 times as strong as the other one.
Absolutely. I feel like this series, I really like the philosophy behind the magic system. One of my favorite quotes from the original trilogy is, "Are we not all things?"
Yes, absolutely.
And like that's gonna rattle around the old noggin for a while. But I'm excited that you're starting Six of Crows. I think it's a really solid heist story duology.
Absolutely. The other thing that I've been doing is I turned on the Hulu series M.O.D.O.K, which is a Marvel villain. He's the head of AIM. And it's a comedy, but it's aimed towards... It's not necessarily aimed towards adults, but there's a lot of, like, casual killing and other jokes of a more mature nature. There's sex jokes, look out for that. But
it's a mature comedy.
It's a mature comedy. And at first, the first couple of episodes, it was like, okay, this is okay. I'll leave it on while I'm doing something else. Some of the jokes occasionally land, but the further you get into it, the better it becomes. There's a bar mitzvah episode, kind of. The episode title is something like The Great Bar Mitzvah War, and it takes place mostly on Asgard, where Thor is from, and it's a delightful episode. So I'm going to watch it with you, Kat, sometime this weekend, and I think you will really enjoy it. And that's basically been all I've been up to. What have you been up to?
So I was pretty sick in the last week. Something about my allergies is just not going. And so Parks and Rec was taken off of Netflix, so I needed something else to comfort binge watch. And I was like, you know what? Joel asked me to hold off on Toriko because he wants to watch it with me. I will see if there is something else. Netflix has Dorohedero, which is also about food. So I was like, you know what?
Wait, what? Dorohedero is like, it's billed as about food?
No, I misunderstood.
Oh, okay.
I thought that it was about them hunting monsters and eating them. That's what I thought the plot of Dorohedero was. But I was told it was going to be too violent for me. But I've also been told that about, like, The Boys, and I really liked The Boys. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. First couple episodes, I was like, this is really violent. I don't think I like this. And then I binged 6 episodes in a day and a half. And I think I've decided that I do like it.
Okay.
So I don't know that it would, like, stick in my mind as one of my favorite anime, but I really love the art direction that it took, and it's got kind of that zany feel that you get from, you know, JoJo's or One Piece, or where random stuff is just happening.
Yeah.
They have an whole episode where they play baseball, and, like, the bosses of the 2 baseball teams are these 2, like, mad scientist doctors who have a rivalry with one another, and so they're cheating, and one of them made, like, a zombie that he controls with electric shocks, and he also has a bug that he taught to play baseball, and its name is Jonathan, and it can only say shocking.
Very interesting. I have not been watching these episodes with you. As you indicated, you were kind of watching it on, like, your sick days from work and stuff. I will occasionally come into the living room and you'll be in the middle of an episode and I'll kind of sit down and you'll be like, this guy doesn't like that guy, or whatever might be happening. I don't think this show is for me, but it is well regarded by quite a few people, and so maybe if I sat down and actually watched it, I would get it better, or maybe it's just not for me, kind of like how romance aren't for some people or historical dramas aren't for some other people. But it does seem to have a lot of that, like, what's going on, this world is so wacky kind of vibe.
I think you would have the same problem with this show that you had with Beastars, where it feels like the plot kind of meanders and there's a lot of random happenings that don't seem connected. And I don't know if that was a problem in the manga too, or if it's just because they, you know, condensed things for the anime. But it was fun. It's a good, dumb, turn your brain off show, and it's got a caiman man, so...
Did you finish season 1, or are you still in the middle of it?
I have, like, 2 episodes left.
Okay, yeah. On M.O.D.O.K, I still have not seen the final episode of the season, but I will get to it by the time we record the next episode.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Beastars...
I was going to say, I also watched season 2 of Beastars. Now, season 1 of Beastars, Joel and I watched together. Joel was like, I don't like this. This is a meandering nonsense show, and I don't get the point.
Hey, we try to be positive on the show. Beastars is not my food at all. And I just was left with more questions about, like, what was the point of this? But if people like it, watch it.
Yeah, and I was really interested in the world she set up. I thought that season 1 was fairly weak, but I thought it had promise, so I was really excited for season 2. Season 2 was really good, I thought. It told a much tighter story, and it explained a lot of elements of the world that I was more interested in. So now I'm, like, super hyped to read the manga, and I'm gonna do that. I found out I can read it on my Kindle, so...
That's incredible. Again, sometimes I occasionally watch an episode with you, even though I didn't watch all of it. And let me just say, it feels incredibly gay between two characters. I don't know if that counts as a spoiler, because I believe that the episode I watched with you was towards the end of the season, but there was some pretty heavy chemistry, and it's one of those situations like we've talked about before where it's like, I guess you could argue that this is just a really strong friendship between two characters of the same gender or sex, whichever term you prefer, because they're both cis in this case. But it felt like there was some subtext, and the author was kind of like, yeah.
Well, and so I'm pretty sure the author did this on purpose, because there's a lot at play with, like, gender dynamics and species dynamics and things like that throughout both the anime and the manga. And I was reading an analysis of one of the villains that was centered around this question, like, is he gay? And they were pretty much like, yeah, he absolutely is. And, like, there were some weird metaphors going on. So it's an interesting question, and, like, cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Include stuff. But I really like this kind of take on the whole animal world. It's not quite the Zootopia positive, nobody's eating meat, everything's fine.
I mean, just look at the companies that are designing it. Disney will never have a show where someone's going to, like, well, they have Pocahontas and they have Hunchback of Notre Dame, but...
Modern Disney. I will say, the one thing that kind of takes me out of it, that breaks my suspension of disbelief, is if this were a real world, right, where some people had the urge to eat other people.
Like whole, too. Yeah, absolutely.
That absolutely would have been solved. Like, we find out in this season that they can eat bugs, and it's the same kind of protein as just eating meat. So they would just, like, there would be, like, bug-based meat all over the place. Yeah. Or you can get protein out of plants. And we also found out that, like, the meat that is sold on the quote-unquote black market is donated a lot of the times after someone has, like, lived a whole life. And, like, that's cool, I don't even know why that's illegal. Except that I think that there's some issues with, like, people can get addicted to eating meat and then they want to eat a real person. But if the access wasn't so limited in the first place, would that be as much of a problem? So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but no, I liked it a lot. And that's pretty much all I've got. I am re-listening to the Furies of Calderon series, and that's good.
Very nice. That's the Pokemon X Roman Legion story. Perfect. And that's been Chatting with the Hosts. It's time to get into succinct summary. And as we often do when there's, like, two sets of episodes that are, like, entirely disconnected, we will talk about the Toriko, Luffy stuff separately. I think that it makes more sense to focus on the main episodes first and then talk about the Toriko stuff later. If you're listening to... Either way, if you're listening to this on a podcatcher or on YouTube, there will be timestamps, so if you want to skip ahead, you can, or you can choose not to. Up to you. So... Luffy is still freaking out. He's still in this kind of like mental state of derangement where he's like attacking people on Law's ship, and people are trying to sedate him and hold him back, and he's like, "Where's my brother?" And his support group shows up. You have Hancock, Jinbei's still on the ship with him, Law is obviously still on the ship with him, Ivankov shows up, and they're basically trying to figure out what to do, and they decide that maybe they can take him to Amazon Lily, because if Hancock's warlord status has not been revoked, and we don't get any news as to whether it has or has not, that's a safe place for him to hide from the government. He's not allowed to step foot on the island, so they send him to this, like, specific cove, and they set up basically a giant curtain that the men are not allowed to cross, and that's where they're hanging out while Luffy is recovering. He basically is, like, trying to destroy himself. His body, if his wounds open up again, he will not survive, but Jinbei is kind of like, "Hey man, your brother is dead, and there's nothing we can do about that." And then we get some flashbacks. We don't really see Luffy calm down, but after he's like, "Jinbei, is my brother dead?" and Jinbei goes, "Yes," we don't see present time again. We go back in time to when Luffy was 8 and Ace was 10. They are living near the windmill village that we've seen in Luffy's flashback with Shanks, but they're living deeper in the woods, and this is where they met each other, Ace and Luffy. They're living underneath a family or a group of mountain bandits led by Dodon, who's a woman who smokes a lot and can't refuse a request, apparently. So Garp will show up and say, "Take care of this kid," and she'll say, "I don't want to," and Garp goes, "Tough, do it or I'll turn you in." And then the kids are running away from Dodon anyways and, like, living in the wilderness, which is just nonsense.
Yeah, she tries to be like, well, at least I'll have child slaves.
Yeah,
they'll do all the chores I don't want to do.
They'll dust and clean and stuff like that. Turns out, Ace was not actually immediately friendly to Luffy. Ace is very, like, stay the heck out of my business. But over time, Luffy gets better at following Ace through the forest, and eventually he finds the Gray Terminal, which is this big, basically garbage dump of society. It's where all unwanted things go. And there, we find out that Ace has a best friend who's the same age as him, Sabo. And the three of them go on adventures together. At first, Ace is still not trusting of Luffy, but when Luffy finds out that they have, like, this treasure that they've been stealing from all the adults, and they're going to use that to go on a pirate adventure, Luffy gets captured, but he refuses to give up the secret of the treasure, and so he earns their respect. He's still the kid that Ace is like, "You're never going to be a good fighter, you're never going to amount to anything, you're a stupid brat, but at least you kept our secret." And then the three of them drink sake, and they become brothers. Weird that we didn't see Sabo in present time. That's kind of strange.
We did. We'll get into it.
Yes. And then we also find out in the last episode, I believe, that Sabo is from the high society. It's literally called High Town, and basically this country is extremely stratified. The rich people do not like anyone beneath their status coming anywhere near them, and then there's, like, middle people who are, middle class, and then there's the Gray Terminal, which is where all the filthy poors stay, and that's where that's where the crimes happen and that sort of thing. Sabo was from this noble family, but he was basically pressured into being exactly what his parents want, and they more or less hated him, it seems like. And so he ran away to go be an orphan among the Gray Terminal. And that's been your succinct summary. Not very succinct.
Still a good summary.
Yep.
Did you like these episodes?
Yes and no. I don't know why I waffle on this all the time, but I like these episodes in retrospect because I've seen kind of where the flashbacks go, and I've seen other stuff beyond this, and I think that these are interesting episodes. But as someone who wanted to see the cool Luffy punches a guy with his own blood, or Luffy fights a lightning guy, or Usopp uses a match to set off, like, the gas that causes an explosion, it's awfully light on anything like that. And it takes a while to go anywhere, We watched, 6 episodes, one of which was about them going to a food island, but, yeah, it doesn't really feel like a lot happened.
Baby Luffy sure is cute, though.
Baby Luffy is cute. Baby Ace tries to pretend like he's a big tough guy, and He's 10. He is kind of tough, but at the same time, it's still like, what are you doing, kid? You trying to play like an adult? And I really like Sabo's outfit. I like the way that he dresses. He's got like a top hat, and he's got goggles, and he's kind of dressed like a rich kid, but the clothes are kind of scuffed because he hasn't had a change of clothes in a while.
He's a fancy young man.
Yes, absolutely. And how did you like these episodes?
I liked them a lot. I thought they were cute. I've got more thoughts, but we will get into those in the discussion section.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, Ace did not get his Flare fruit until after he left the island, so in these flashbacks, he doesn't have any abilities. Sabo isn't shown to have any abilities beyond a normal human child, but Luffy has already had the Gum fruit. These flashbacks take place after he met Shanks and gave himself the scar and inherited the straw hat.
But, like, his Gum pistol sucks.
He's very bad at using his powers, and he at one point, he's like, check out this ability, he turns into a balloon, he's like, this is so cool, and Sabo and Ace are like, it's not cool at all. Like, he radiates 8-year-old energy. But why don't you go into a little bit more information about your thoughts on these episodes?
Sure. So, sorry, I just got to gather my brain juices here. I think it's interesting that Sabo decided he didn't want to be a wealthy child, right? Because it was too stifling. But, like, he couldn't bring himself to fully abandon what word am I looking for?
The island? The comforts?
No, the physical, like, outfits and stuff that come with being wealthy. He didn't get rid of the symbol for his family that lets him in and out of Hightown, and he still walks around in this, like, super recognizable top hat. Like, he could have just fully committed to being one of the people of Grey Terminal, but he didn't. And I think that speaks to kind of this inability to fully leave his parents behind and fully accept, like, they didn't love me and weren't supportive of me, and I need to move on. Yeah,
I mean, it's hard. We don't know how long ago Sabo ran away from his family. I'm going to assume it was fairly recent. Maybe he's been on his own for, like, maybe 6 months or something. So that means he's lived with his family for, 7 years. And while they were horrible, I think that they didn't reach peak horribleness until the moment he decided to run away. And so it's hard when you live with someone for that long to not feel some connection to them, even when you realize that they're not good for you and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I think is really interesting, so at one point I paused, it was during the flashback when Ace and Luffy, like, had the sake, and they were like, we're brothers now, during Ace's, like, death episodes. I had you pause it, and I looked at you, and I was like, okay, so I know there are people in the fandom who saw this scene, and they said, there's definitely a third brother, but I can't tell how. And you went, look at this frame. There's an extra shadow of a third cup.
Absolutely.
The fandom for One Piece is incredible. Like, there's so much to this show, and yet there are still people who will hear a name, and then 300 chapters later, that person will show up, and they'll go, oh yeah, they were mentioned in this chapter, and we know A, B, and C about them because of the way that they were mentioned and the people that were talking about them. It's just like, wow, you must have an Excel spreadsheet, and you must go through the show frame by frame, looking for people who match descriptions that we've heard in other things. And I'm just really impressed by that personally.
No, that is pretty incredible. So like you mentioned, there is the scene of Ace having a flashback of them exchanging a sake cup, and I believe the idea is that you can see the shadow of the third one. Oda, I think, had a plan for having the third brother and wanted to kind of give us, and more explicit than in the anime, right? I don't think I had been reading the manga at this point. I think this was right around when I got caught up, when I switched from anime to manga, though. But I think that he wanted to give, like, a little bit of a hint, because otherwise it would feel like a retcon to introduce this third brother that had never been mentioned. But yeah. Not to go too inside baseball, but like I kind of already foreshadowed, we haven't heard mention of Sabo. And technically, Luffy never mentioned Ace until Ace showed up. But you would think that when Luffy and Ace saw each other, if they had a third brother out there, Luffy might have said, have you heard anything about Sabo? Or something like that, right? But he didn't mention it. When Ace was going to be executed, Luffy's like, I gotta do anything to save my brother. So you'd think that Sabo would have tried to show up as well. And I mean, maybe he couldn't because the place was so well guarded. Luffy's the child of miracles. But still, it paints the picture of Sabo not being around. And isn't it interesting that Ace has a tattoo that is A-S, but the S is crossed out C-E?
No. He misspelled his name at first pass and had to do it again. No, I agree. I do think that's interesting. And like you said, it's interesting that there has been zero mention of him since Ace or since Ace's death, right? He didn't come out of the woodwork to save Ace, even though this was a super publicized event, and you'd think the way they were as kids. So maybe there was a falling out, maybe there was something else that happened to him, but either way, I don't think, just from what we got in these episodes, that he is still in their lives.
Right, yeah. Maybe he's the dark brother who betrays them in order to go back to his wealthy family in another couple of episodes. But yeah, I think the idea is that Sabo showing up in these episodes, swearing the oath of brotherhood with them, I think is supposed to create a sense of intrigue in the reader and also a sense of tragedy, whether that is he leaves them or whether he dies or whether he just disappears one day. But it's clearly supposed to be like well, how does this story end? We assume that Luffy and Ace are the only two left in the picture. It's also kind of interesting that sometimes in stories, you have the hero with the mentor figure, and then the mentor dies or something like that. That's a very common trope. But sometimes you get the replacement mentor. You get someone else who's like even more knowledgeable or something like that to kind of replace the friend who's been lost. And so I just think it's kind of interesting that we're getting these flashbacks and that Ace is dead now, for sure. And then we're introduced to a third brother. It almost feels like he will come back, maybe, but who knows? If he did leave because he betrayed Luffy and Ace or something like that, maybe Ace's death will be the thing that causes him to be like, oh no, I need to make up for this. Maybe he'll seek Luffy in the present time.
Maybe he'll be the one who helps Luffy reunite with his crew.
Yeah, absolutely. There's all sorts of theories. I don't think we have any evidence of what might pan out, but there's possibilities, and it seems like an odd time for Oda to introduce a character unless it... Before he died, he told them, go to this island if ever you need anything. So in the present time, Luffy will go to that island and it'll be where he receives the super ultra bow staff that turns him into the Sun Wukong King or whatever.
Absolutely. If you don't mind me shifting gears briefly, just a couple of new pieces of information we got at the very beginning of this set of episodes.
We had quite a few flashes of Marineford during the aftermath.
Yes. We find out the name of the fourth Yonko. Kid actually mentions Big Mom. So we wanted our female Yonko. I'm pretty sure someone named Big Mom will be female. I
will say this. We will refer to this character as Big Mom because we have a bit of foreknowledge of stuff that's happening and the name comes up again. And I believe in the manga it's always been Big Mom. In the subtitle version that we watched, he said Big Mam, like M-A-M, which I believe is just another word for mom, another spelling for it. But I believe the official name is Big Mom. Maybe back then Oda still hadn't figured out exactly what he wanted it to be, or maybe some localizer translated it that way. But on this podcast, she will be Big Mom.
There's also a lot of typos in the subtitles for the version we watch, and no judgment, sometimes you're trying to subtitle 40,000 episodes of anime and, your fingers slip or you don't notice mistakes. But we do pick up every once in a while, it'll say it should be like you are and instead it'll be like you be.
Sure, or something like that. The one that always drives me nuts, I know it's not cool to be the strict authoritarian when it comes to grammar, but it's with the comma or without the comma, every time, because the way I remember is I remember with the apostrophe, with the apostrophe, it's shortened for it is. So every time I see it's, I always substitute it is to see if it makes sense or not, and then I check if it matches. And so anytime they mess that up, I'm always like, ha ha.
I told you about the like weird circular discussion I got caught in with my mom about that, right?
What?
Yeah, so I tried to say that I'm pretty good about grammar, you know, there and your, that doesn't trip me up. But I have to check it's every time because usually the apostrophe S denotes possession.
Absolutely.
But not with it's. With it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. It is has the apostrophe and belonging to it does not. And so I just tried to say, like, it's weird that it's backwards of how it usually is. And Mom goes, but you're not saying it is. And I go, well, yeah, I know. And she goes, but you're not saying it is. And we went back and forth like that for a minute until my dad was finally like, she gets it. She's just saying that it's like weird because you often use the apostrophe for, and somehow that broke us out of the...
Interesting. Very, very, very good.
The circle.
So, yeah, it is... Here's the thing that I find so interesting about Kid.
Where is it?
The interesting thing about Kid is right here. It's the Thing from Fantastic Four. But Kid is introduced as, it seems like the most violent of all of the supernova. And several of them, Law's called the Surgeon of Death, I believe Capone, or it was either Jewelry Bonnie or Capone, but one of them shot someone at a restaurant for getting the order wrong or something. But Kid crucifies civilians for laughing at his dream of saying that he'll find the One Piece. So you'd think that he would be like the rough and tumble, Bakugo before he gets any character development type character. But he also is the first character to know the names of the Yonko, and he made some comment at the human auction shop about, like, this world is so oppressive and it causes us to want to rebel. So he's not as dumb as you might expect him to be, and he is interesting. And again, I made this comment before, Oda gave him a higher bounty than Luffy. He's the only one who fits that pattern, so I feel like he's going to have some impact on the future.
I feel like, as a person who is generally attracted to men, as you age, your tastes in men mature. And so the first time I watched through One Piece, I was like, Law. Law is where it's at. Look at this man. This is a perfect specimen. But the older I get, the more I recognize... No. Give me the goblins. And so I'm very into Kid as a character this watch through. Like, the first watch through, I was like, he's alright, he's a spiky dude, but now I'm like, bring it on. Give me that horrible, nasty man.
Every time I see him, I can't help but think, that's Bowser. Just something about the red hair and the spikiness of it. I have grown to like Kid as a more complex character, but at this point... it's all about, like, who has the most flamboyant personality, and no argument here, Kid is flamboyant, but, like, Apu is one of my favorites just because he sang a rap as he was attacking an admiral of the Navy, and Law's powers are just fascinating. Like, I want Oda to say, like, he ate the space fruit, I think is what I originally thought it was going to be, whether that's correct or not, and I just want to know, like, what can he do with that weird dome he creates?
It's so funny to me to think back to a time when we didn't know what his fruit was, because I met you just before the anime got to Fishman Island.
I believe so. That sounds correct.
You were telling me all your One Piece theories, and, like, I hadn't even seen One Piece yet. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, sure, that could be it. But I had no idea what you were talking about. And then to actually, like, watch through and find it out was very interesting and fulfilling. I will say really quick, since we're on the topic of supernovas, Hawkins had a very interesting introduction, but more importantly, there is a cat man on his ship.
A black cat.
His name is Faust, and he is unstoppable.
Faust, if for those of you unfamiliar with the literature, and I don't think I've read the story that it comes from, but Faust is the author or the character, I'm not sure, who makes a deal with the devil that costs him his soul. And so there's the term, a Faustian deal is one in which you relinquish your soul in exchange for great power or something like that.
It's a deal that costs you more than you expect.
And so, Hawkins has the predictions and the ability, like he has the psychic vibe. And so Faust is the perfect name for one of his crew members. But not much is known about him. Also, Luffy was seen by all the Supernova, I'm pretty sure, escaping and getting on Law's submarine, and the submarine goes under and was attacked by the admirals. Hawkins is sitting on his ship, and he is flipping over his cards. And he basically says Luffy's probability of death of his chance of survival is never 0%, which is very interesting because a prediction shouldn't really change unless variables change, and so unless he was casting the cards at the beginning of the battle when Luffy showed up, and in the middle of the battle after he'd saved Ace, and when he escaped, you think that the percentage would stay the same, but it's also interesting that Luffy always has a chance to survive.
Depending on the way that you do tarot cards, you can, ask different questions. Okay. Or you can cast for, specific ideas. And so it could have been if he stays on Law's ship, what's his chance of surviving? And then he flips over a card. Oh. Or if he does X, what are his chances? And so, he's looking at all of these different possible paths, and he's finding that no matter what path he takes, his chance of survival never hits 0.
Oh, I never considered that. But no, it is interesting because, a lot of people talk about plot armor and, characters survive things because they're the main characters. Looking at you, Fast and the Furious. But maybe Luffy does have some kind of ability, and maybe there's more to Luffy becoming king of the pirates than just a guy with a dream. Maybe there is some... he's related to the world's most wanted man, so maybe there's something there. Maybe Dragon... when he and Luffy's mom were conceiving, maybe he set up the ritual, He had, crystals hanging from the ceiling. They were facing east. There's fertility rituals that are supposed to help decide whether your child will be born male or female. So maybe Dragon was doing weird voodoo stuff so that his child would be touched by destiny. And that's why Luffy's the protagonist.
Could be. Can I just say, Sengoku did not seem to be having a good time.
No, he did not at all. He was devastated, is one word for it, by everything that had happened. And we got some interesting news. Do you want to tackle it, or should I?
You go for it.
All right, so there's a guy. He has a name. He has green hair. He's the one who initially gave Luffy the 30 million bounty when he was leaving East Blue. I don't remember his name, but he shows up in the background of certain scenes. He runs up to Sengoku and he goes, "Hey, we've got word from Impel Down." Because during the battle, we were too focused on fighting Ace and the Whitebeard Pirates and all this other stuff. But now that it's calmed down, we've talked to him. Magellan is in critical condition. He got beaten real bad and he's on the verge of death, but he's still alive. He wants to take his own life based off of his failure, the failure he sees as his responsibility. Sengoku basically says, don't let that man go away. We need men like him. And then, guy whose name I can't remember, says, hey, by the way, we saw Blackbeard with four escapees of Impel Down level 6, which are the criminals so bad we try to erase them from the history books.
Yeah, Sengoku's like, heck, we gotta tell everyone.
Well, no. The guy says, in addition to the ones that we saw with Blackbeard at the war, others are unaccounted for. And we also find out that Blackbeard made all of the people on Impel Down level 6 fight each other, and whoever survived he'd take with him. But apparently during all that chaos, there might have been a couple who were hiding in the shadows or something, or snuck past Blackbeard.
Pretended to be dead. And
something like that. And so this guy's like, hey, Sengoku, there's some people who are missing. And Sengoku goes, oh no, we have to warn. These people are so dangerous that even if one of them escapes into the thing. And the guy goes, yeah, about that. The world nobles said that if we told the world that we let a bunch of prisoners escape, that would look real bad. So we're just going to be hushed up about this. And Sengoku is like, what the actual heck are you talking about? And we don't get names, but we get the seeds planted for potential future plot devices. If I had to guess, I think Oda at this point probably has a general idea as to like where in the story they might show up, but he doesn't know specifically what he wants their skill sets to be or how they're going to influence the plot. So they just mentioned there are some bad people out there, and who knows?
Yeah, speaking of the government doing shady shit, Doflamingo killed Moria for some reason.
Moria is beaten down pretty badly. I think he's on his hands and knees and kind of like wheezing with exertion, surrounded by pacifistas and Doflamingo. And Moria's like, why are you doing this? And Daffy goes, hey, don't you think you've outlived your usefulness? I mean, you didn't really do a lot during the war. I don't know if Daffy knows about Moria's loss to Straw Hat. I'm going to assume yes. He seems to know a lot of secrets. So basically, don't you think it would be better if we said that you died during the war and you died a noble death and we could replace you with someone stronger? And Moria's like, who told you to do this? Was it that Sengoku bastard? And Doflamingo just says, no. I got orders from, quote, someone much higher up the food chain, unquote. Which is a fascinating turn of phrase. And also, Moria's eyes kind of like widen in relation to this news. So I think there's two possible reads. And I don't think we've had this answered either way. Either Moria was surprised to hear that there is someone higher up than Sengoku. He was like, oh my god. Or there's something in the One Piece world that we, the viewers, don't know. Luffy probably doesn't know. He's an idiot. But maybe someone like Robin would know, or maybe it's a top secret level alpha clearance. There might be a well-known like person that Doflamingo is specifically taking orders from. Like maybe Moria's heard rumors of secret undercover unit, Ace or clubs or whatever. Like it's named after cards or something. And maybe he thinks that Daffy is working for the secret organization. Maybe Daffy's a secret spy. Like maybe he's pretending to be a pirate, but he's actually a world government lackey of some sort. Maybe that's how he knew about Kuma.
Maybe. Either way, we give thanks and praise for the 100 cc's of nasty man directly into my veins.
Yeah, no, he's a very charismatic man and still great, still waiting for him to eventually face Luffy, because like I've said before, it seems in the stars based off of other clues dropped by Oda.
The other warlords don't seem to be as involved with the government as Daffy, which I think is really interesting. Like, the other warlords kind of do whatever the heck they want, but Daffy knows things. He knows stuff about Kuma. He took orders from someone even higher than Sengoku in regards to Moria. Like, he seems to have his finger on the pulse of the world, so to speak. And I'm curious what it is about the government that has his loyalty, if that's what this is, if that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. No, it's hard not to speculate without just, like, giving away what might be revealed later in the series. But it's very interesting. Also related to this, we talked last episode about where the One Piece world might be going. Blackbeard became a warlord specifically to get an impel down, and he betrayed the government. He announced that. So he's definitely out of the team. Moria is presumed dead, so he's off the list of the 7 Shichibukai. Hancock indicated that her status as a warlord might be up in the air, but we don't really get any news about that, so she's iffy. Jimbei resigned over the Marineford War arc, so we're gonna get a shakeup of the organization. We still have Kuma, who's a robot and super loyal. We still have Daffy, who seems to be a Shichibukai, also to kill the boredom, but in a slightly different way than Mihawk. And then we have, we have Mihawk, and that's it. Everyone else is kind of up in the air, or dead, or have forcibly resigned. They covered up Moria's defeat, because 2 warlords being defeated would be embarrassing, but now, what the hell are they going to do? Are they just going to get rid of the system? Or are we going to see, like, the 10 All-Stars instead of the 7 Shichibukai or something? Like, are they going to roll out a new system? Who knows? Who knows?
Find out next time on One Piece. We usually do our favorite scenes or quotes. Can I just say my favorite scene was the whole of the Toriko episodes, which we have yet to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you give the succinct summary for kind of like what's going on?
Sure. So the Straw Hat crew somehow has run out of food. They have no food left, and there are no islands in sight. But, there's one island. Why don't we send Sanji, Nami, and Luffy onto the island to buy some food? And Chopper. Chopper was there. This is very important. And so they get there, and they discover, holy shit, this island is made of food. The bushes are cotton candy. The trees are meat. And out of the forest comes a crew of interesting characters. There is a man who is very large and beefy. There is a child. The wiki says he's 28, but he looks like he's 12. And there is a wolf. And they're like, what up? We're here. We want to eat some stuff. And then they get attacked by pigs that are barbecue.
Barbecue pigs.
They have flames coming out of their back, so they cook themselves as you fight them. And it just turns out that, like, this guy, Toriko, he's hunting meat, and he came to this island to find the mythical whatever. And they're like, okay, we'll hunt the mythical whatever with you, and shenanigans ensue, pretty much. Eventually, Nami is kidnapped because...
And Komatsu. Nobody cares.
Babyest boy. Nami and Komatsu are kidnapped. They're like, we gotta get them back. They discover that the entire island is itself a single food. It is a parfait island with a little, like, pudding volcano in the middle and giant rivers of whipped cream. And that's it. That's your Toriko episode.
The final battle is against a creature known as a knockout koala. It's the evolved form of Coke koalas? I can't remember exactly what the...
Koala.
Okay, yes. So basically, Toriko's a show about... in like cooking and stuff, and so there's
it's like Monster Hunter meets Food Wars.
Yeah, and so there's mythical, or I guess not mythical, they're well known and documented, but there are creatures that are basically made of different types of food, and Toriko is out trying to create the ultimate course of his life's ultimate course, and so he basically eats everything to try and figure out whether this could go into the salad or the soup or anything like that, but because this is a filler crossover episode, nothing here quite piques his interest. But, okay, so what did you like about these episodes?
Toriko is a big ol' himbo.
Absolutely he is.
Nothing but muscles and kindness. And I really like his energy and his enthusiasm. One of my problems with, like, Monster Hunter, for example, is I have a passion for, like, various crawly things and lizard things and whatever. And so when I see a monster game, I'm like, yes, look at the monsters! And then they get killed, and I'm like, no! And so I was like, Toriko's gonna make me sad for the same reason. But he has a line where he's like, I don't kill things I don't intend to eat.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like that he respects the life. His, like, I'm entering into battle, I'm getting serious line is, it's time to eat.
Yeah, the Ikadakimasu, is that what it is?
Yeah, and then afterwards he ends his battles with thank you for the meal.
Yes.
And I love that. Like, it's a staple in all of the anime that I watch, but now it's being used as, like, the badass shonen thing. He
initially shows up looking for the mythical Hungry-Law bird. Hungry-Law is the island, and this bird is potentially a secret ingredient. It's not actually that strong because the actual secret of Hungry-Law Island is that Hungry-Law is the ingredient. But when he's fighting this bird, he basically says, "You're so powerful. Why don't I show you the tools of mankind?" And he, like... I don't know, he sharpens his hands. He does, like, this gesture, and they actually hear the sound of, like, metal scraping on metal. And then he forms this pose, and he has two attacks. One hand is fork, and the other hand is knife. And he uses that to defeat the Hungry-Law bird. And it's incredible, you know? There's a little bit too much. That's a level 1 monster, Toriko. You have to have a crew of at least 3 in order to beat them. Like, it feels kind of video gamey in a way that I don't like anime to be. I'd prefer it be in a video game, but no, overall, I really like Toriko. There's a wolf who can't talk, but that's why Chopper was there. Well, Chopper was there for 2 reasons. One reason is because he can talk to the wolf. The other reason is because he looked like an ingredient to Toriko. But I really like the wolf. And Komatsu is not my favorite, but he seems like maybe he could grow. You kept comparing him to Usopp, and I really like Usopp, so maybe as we watch more of Toriko, he will grow on us.
I thought that Komatsu was pretty endearing as a character, if only because, yes, he kind of felt like an Usopp to me, but also he had his own skills, right? It turns out he's a really good chef, and like he tastes Sanji's sauce and makes a suggestion, and Sanji's like, wow, mind-blowing, good for you. And also, he seems to genuinely admire Toriko as a person, and I like that in a sidekick character. I think that's sweet.
Yeah, I hope that him getting kidnapped is not something that keeps happening in the show. If he gets kidnapped, early on, and then maybe he learns his own fighting abilities or something, or he fights lesser opponents that are tough for him, but Toriko could take out no problem, that would be great. But if he gets kidnapped like every arc and it's like, oh, here goes the Komatsu arc, I would grow tired of him. But no, I do think that he brings something to the table, and there is a joke, and it's a really obvious joke that you've seen a million times before, even though I can't think of an example, but when Komatsu and Nami get taken, they get kidnapped, they eventually figure out that they have been taken to the all-berry tree, all-fruit tree. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically a tree that grows a single fruit that is a combination of all fruity flavors. And so Luffy's like, we gotta save Nami. And Sanji's like, we gotta save Nami. And then Toriko's like, I gotta taste the multi-fruit tree. And then when they show up, the first time he says it, everyone's like, I think you forgot about Komatsu. But then when they actually show up and they're fighting the knockout koala, Luffy's like, Nami, I'll save you. And Toriko's like, I'm gonna eat that berry. And Komatsu's like, I don't even matter, do I? Like, it's an old tired joke, but I think they pulled it off very well.
Absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to the show. Mm-hmm. It definitely had the same feeling of adventure that I appreciate in One Piece. Like, this whole show or manga or whatever is a story about going to different places and finding new things.
Yeah, I don't think that Toriko would do well as a crossover with Bleach or Naruto. Spoiler alert, they do eventually do a crossover with Dragon Ball, and every time I look at Toriko, I go, that's beefy Goku. Something about the orange gi that he's wearing, it's very reminiscent of Goku and Kakarot. But I think that he could get along well with the Black Clover manga, and I think he gets along well with the One Piece anime, and we get more crossovers. I think when I was reading from the wiki, there are 3 others. I have not seen any of them, and I didn't even know they were on Verve, but they are there.
Yeah, and Joel was telling me that the anime, which has finished, doesn't seem to cover all of the manga, so, like, hit me up and let me know if you would recommend the manga versus the anime, because generally speaking, I like that I can see the fights happening in anime. That's one of the strengths I think anime has over manga. But if the manga tells a tighter story and it tells the more complete
if this is a Promised Neverland situation, please warn us so we can read the manga and get the good story.
I don't need a slideshow finale. Thank you.
I don't believe that the ending was rushed. I don't believe that the anime was canceled. It's more like how Full Metal Alchemist, not Brotherhood, the original, followed the manga up into a certain point, and then it just sort of, like, veered. I found a Reddit post that suggested, like, this is the chapter and episode that they pretty much go neck and neck, and they're the same, and then they split after that point, so...
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, we'll definitely be checking it out after we get through all of our obligations for the podcast.
Absolutely.
And that has been your... Doot Final Thought. Outro goes here. Thanks for listening, everyone. Next episode of the podcast, we'll be covering episodes 497 through 503. And once again, I thank the earth for this bountiful meal.
In the next, Toriko. All right, I'm sold. I've only had Toriko Wolf for 5 seconds, but if anything happens to him, I am burning down this entire Applebee's.
Not again. We've already had to assume new identities. Every day I live in fear of the Applebee's police coming to our house and realizing it's us.
fuck both the apples and the bees.
Ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.